Hey everyone, my name is Collum, and welcome to our weekly devotional. I love being able to share in God's holy word with other people, and so truly these devotionals are just such a joy for me to do. And today I wanted to talk a bit about vulnerability. Vulnerability is such a tough, yet incredibly important topic. Though I do find it interesting that even just saying the word vulnerability usually induces fear for most people. And I think it's just that thought of allowing someone to know us fully, that thought of putting ourselves out there when it's so much easier to hide. It's an intimidating process, even for the most confident of people. But why is this so? Why is it so hard for us to be vulnerable with one another? Each morning, I like to start my day by listening to a few sermons that are podcasts. And one of my favorites to listen to is Pastor Rick Warren's Daily Hope podcast. And in the episode I was listening to this morning, Pastor Rick was talking about this, and he was talking about 3 different reasons as to why we as humans are afraid of vulnerability. And he did this from the perspective of Adam and Eve. The first one that he noted was Adam and Eve's fear of exposure. We see this fear come to fruition when they eat from the tree of knowledge and they become aware that they are naked. They sew together fig leaf coverings, and then they try and hide from God so that he doesn't witness their own nakedness. Now, of course, we can look at this literally and say, yes, they were indeed physically naked. But I also believe there was such a powerful undertone of emotional nakedness as well. Because isn't it so true that within each of us, there is something that we feel the need to hide under figurative fig leaves? The second fear that Rick noted was the fear of disapproval. We see this fear in action when Adam deflects the blame of eating from the tree of knowledge onto his wife Eve. And when he's confronted by God about his actions, Adam simply says, well, you gave me this woman. Therefore implying that if God had not given him Eve, he wouldn't have been tempted to sin. Though I find it odd that, isn't it true that most people who are critical of others, the more you can be certain that that person themselves fears disapproval. The very last fear that Pastor Rick speaks of in this sermon is the fear of losing control. And Eve clearly let this fear overtake her as she tried to very much lord her own life by acquiring knowledge that she was deceived into thinking would make her equal to God. She craved to have that control over her own life, when in reality that authority is in God's hands alone. And the more out of control our own lives become, I think the more we as humans try and latch on to that control even more because we're afraid. Why are we afraid? Because we're afraid of being exposed. We're afraid of disapproval. We are afraid of losing control. Does this sound familiar? I want to leave you with scripture from the book of John. And this is from chapter 4, verses 18. And it says this: "There is no fear in love, for perfect love drives out fear." Perfect love does not come from man. Perfect love only comes from God. So I encourage you to invite him and his perfect love into your life, into your relationships, into your fears, and watch as those fears are driven away. Thank you for joining us for this weekly devotional, and I hope I get to see you soon.